Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 297. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News. Hope to get Daniel from the Inscriber to join us in a few, having some technical issues on his end. He's just getting home, I think. I think he's getting home. Get ready to get home. Get ready to get on shortly. But until he comes on, what's going on, Gail? How you doing?
Oh, we got it handled between us two and all of you in the chat. Thank you very much. We're going to get it on. It's a short week of boxing, Labor Day weekend. Man, we all deserve a break.
Indeed. And shout out to Lisa who joined us early in the chat room. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, a live YouTube show, podcast, and blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is, as always, once boxing is good, we will talk about it. Once it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information for the time being, check out the blog page, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. If you're watching this live on YouTube, just hit that description tab below. You'll find links to where to find us all over social media, where you can check us out on all available platforms that carry podcasts, where you can donate, and where you can join my online. You can check out my online fitness coaching page. I am a coach for Beachbody Live, 6 weeks of the work challenge group that started today. If you're interested in taking your fitness up to another level, just hit my coaching page link on Pound for Pound Box Report blog page, or just hit me up privately on Twitter, Pound for Pound Box Report, Twitter at P4P Box Report, or my live personal Twitter. I'll give out the information about that in a few. Let's get things going this evening because we're starting a little bit behind schedule. Going to go to the 140-pound division, Gail. Jose Ramirez, specifically Ramirez, the WBC BO champion at 140 pounds at junior welterweight. Well, he had a mandatory defense against Viktor Postol at Las Vegas at the bubble, top-ranked bubble in Las Vegas. And Ramirez was the favorite, but he had difficult time in there with Postol. Postol, taller, longer, difficult opponent for him. Was always on the back foot for the most part. Ramirez had to make the fight, and for large segments of that fight, Gail, he had trouble, quote unquote, making that fight. A lot of back and forth, a lot of discrepancy in terms of the scorecard. Ramirez ended up getting a decision, but a lot of people on social media and otherwise, I think Tim Bradley ringside, he had the fight 6-6. He had it even. I know others had Postol ahead. From your vantage point, Gail, simply put, who did you have winning?
You know, it was one of those tricky fights to score. A draw would have been fine. A 115, 113 card either direction would have been fine. You know, the judges didn't agree on many rounds. The rounds they did agree on were in the front half of the fight, mostly giving the first few rounds to Postol. Ramirez finally got his bearings, started to bear down. You know, he really had trouble cutting off the ring. You know, Postol was just not there to be hit a lot of the fight. And Postol, you know, rang Ramirez's bell with some terrific jabs and left hooks. You know, he's a tall, long-armed guy. And it was definitely Postol's soundtrack. You know, they were dancing to his music a lot of that fight. It came down to what the judges like. You know, do you like a guy who's busier, who fights behind the jab, who's technically sound, who's in the right place and then not in the right place, you know, to be hit? Or do you like a guy who's a little less busy, but when he is scoring shots, he's scoring more power punches, which Ramirez by the end of the fight did rack up more power punches than Postol did. So, not a robbery. No, thank God, no crazy 118, 110 scorecards in this fight, which would have been an outrage. Even 116, 112 from Steve Weisfeld, who's normally so on the money, I thought, whoa, that seemed a little bit of a stretch. But, it is really tough to take the champion's belts off him. I give you that. And if you're a person who thinks scoring with the power shots in the end overrides the technical performance, along with the idea that you really need to definitively beat a champion, then you're going to see Ramirez winning. And, Postol really needed a performance that was just turned up a notch, just slighter, I'm sure if he looks back at the fight, he and Freddie Roach are going to look at it and think, oh, damn, if we'd only done one thing in this round and one more thing in another round, we could have won this fight. But he didn't. Bottom line is he didn't. So I'm good with it. It's a bit of a troubling performance, if you will, by Ramirez. It didn't expose him by any means. He did go on at length in the post-fight interview about having a lot of distractions, being way overtrained, because he's essentially been in camp since the middle of January for this fight. Let's check the calendar, everybody. It's almost September. And he said he was just burned out. He's had family stuff going on. His daughter's been ill and had or daughter or son has had surgery. That's going to weigh heavily on any parent's mind. So, give him a pass, but he's got to bear down now, because if he's heading toward a fight with Josh Taylor, he cannot fight Josh Taylor at the level he fought Viktor Postol and get away with it.
I understand the outside excuses, and I will take them for what it is. He says he's had some outside excuse, family situations, and said he was overtrained. I'll give him that. However, this is the second fight out of 3 that he has struggled, and with the perception from some that he got away with a quote-unquote gift decision. Back in February last year, he fought Jose Cepeda at his basically home base, Save Mart Arena in Fresno. And this fight with Postol, in a sense, kind of went the same way as the Cepeda fight, meaning he was in there with a guy who could box him and who could keep the fight at distance. And just like in the Cepeda fight, he had trouble kind of sinking his teeth into the fight. Same situation here. Moving forward to a fight against Taylor, if that happens next, and I don't know that's going to happen next, because one, Taylor has a mandatory defense he has to overcome himself later on this year. I think September, or next month, I should say, September 25th. 2, the WBO ruled today that Ramirez must fight their mandatory challenger, Jack Catterall of England. And if they stick to that, he's going to have to fight. He's going to have to fight Catterall, or they could possibly strip him of the belt. But that outside of that, to your point, Gail, if he's having trouble with the likes of Postol, if he's having trouble with the likes of Cepeda last year, and I said this on Twitter, and a lot of people are saying this as well, he's going to find it stinking difficult against the likes of Josh Taylor, who following the fight was like, yeah, okay, he got the win, but he wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
Neither was a lot of folks impressed by that performance from Ramirez.
I mean, look at what Josh Taylor did to Regis Prograis. And now
what he did to the same Postol.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at this fight being set up and you're starting to think, well, is Ramirez simply a very good fighter, but not a great one? Well, that's what they get into the ring to find out. And he's going to find out one way or another against Josh Taylor. That will be a significant test. It's a test he should take. Right now, I'm 100% convinced he can pass it.
Not based on what we saw. So, yeah, for this, in terms of Ramirez, this is like the second fight out of three, second fight in a little over a year, or in a year and a half, I'll say that. He struggled. And yes, he's a unified champion. He has two belts, but I'm not ready to say he's the best at 140 pounds. Not based on this fight. Outside the Hooker fight, not based on recent performances either. So luckily, he got the win, and he has to improve going forward, particularly in a proposed bout against Josh Taylor for all the belts at 140 pounds. Let's move on, Gail, to fight on the undercard. And when we talk about up and coming fighters, when we talk about prospects at the 147-pound division here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we've talked about a lot about Virgil Ortiz. We've talked a lot about Jerron Boots Ennis. There's another fighter on the scene. I personally did a interview with a young 17, 18-year-old Xander Izaz. You can check that out in the Pound for Pound Boxing Report archives here on YouTube, or either on iTunes, Spotify, and whatnot. Another fighter that we may have to devote some more attention to is a young man by the name of Rodriguez, Elvis Rodriguez, who fought on the undercard, fought a guy by the name of Cody Wilson, knocked him out in 2 rounds. And Rodriguez, Gail, I think you talked about this guy privately, starting to get a lot of buzz based on his power. And the more I watch him, he's a little bit more than a power puncher, is the way he set things up. Should we start putting him, thinking about putting him in that same realm when it comes to Ortiz, when it comes to Boots, when it comes to in terms of up and coming fighters, promising fighters, promising prospects, not just in the welterweight division, but in all of boxing?
We absolutely do. It's very easy to get excited about flashy prospects when, the pins are being set up and they're knocking them down. But Rodriguez seems to be not only fueling the hype with his knockouts, with his performances, but a lot of them reflect some really smart moves in the ring, really smart positioning of his opponents. He doesn't just go in there with a big bludgeon. And a lot of the youngsters, they've got good power. They're unafraid. They're going up against guys that just, truly they're straw men. But Rodriguez does it with a little bit more finesse. And you also have to pay attention when a coach at the level of Freddie Roach says, this guy is the future of my entire stable. He is the number one, the best fighter I have right now. Think about all the guys he's seen run through the wild card over the years. And technically Manny Pacquiao isn't retired as far as I know, although I understand Roach is sort of hoping he's only going to have 1 or 2 more fights and be done. But he is completely betting his future on Rodriguez. And that tells me a lot. He's not in any position to need to hype himself at all. Probably the opposite. I'm sure he has to beat people down, away from the door at times. So when Roach says that, it's generally because he sees a fighter with a really well-honed offensive style. I also like Rodriguez's playing to the crowd. He's just flashy enough. He's fan-friendly enough. When he starts having the ability to do his interviews a little more in English, I think the sky's the limit. I really do. He looks good. He does what he says he's going to do. He performs. I really like what I'm seeing.
And I say welterweight. The reason I say that, some people may push back and say, well, he fought most of his career at 140 pounds. Well, he weighed 143 for this fight. And if you've seen his physique, he looks bigger than 140 pounds. He looks like he's not going to be able to hold
Yeah,
that weight
no,
for much longer. He has the look of someone who's going to be fighting at 147 much sooner than later. So that's why I'm from right now putting the 24-year-old Dominican prospect as a welterweight in my eyes, because there's no way he's going to be able to hold 140 pounds for that much longer.
well, he's still young. I mean, it's possible he'll hang on, a little bit longer, but no, why would he? The welterweight division is where the action is, where a lot of the money is. Um, you know, and Top Rank would sure like to get some sort of toehold in that division, because right now they've got Terence Crawford and that's about it. So they badly need to develop, their depth at welterweight if they're going to get any competitive fights for Crawford and anybody else in their stable down the road. So it's a smart move for them to put Rodriguez front and center. He's gotten a nice bit of attention in the bubble, being willing to fight there at this level. So the timing has really been great for him. Elvis just keeps delivering the hits.
One final question before we move on. You mentioned the glowing praise that Freddie Roach has for him. Based on what I've seen of him, it's right now. It's time for him to take that next step. I'm not saying he should be fighting world-rated guys or ready for a world title shot anytime soon. But if you were managing him, um, given where he is now, who would you kind of put him in the ring with, for lack of better lack of better saying? Who would you put him up in the ring with to kind of take that next step, that next evolution of his career?
Welterweight is such a competitive division. So, normally you might say, well, let's see if he fights somebody in the top 20 or 30. Well, welterweight, those guys, even at that level, are pretty damn good. What he doesn't need to do is be fighting, the Cody Wilsons of West Virginia of the world, which is who he got in this last bout. A guy who's 9-3. He doesn't need that. What he needs is some of these, maybe 20 to 40th ranked guys, tough characters, Mexican gatekeepers kind of guys who can make him go some rounds and make him think a little harder in the ring. How am I going to deliver these power punches? It was in this fight with Wilson, he flattened him with a hard left hook, but it wasn't the left hook that was so impressive. It was the fact that he threw the lead right, but before he threw the hook, he gave himself room, a half step back, to give him the full leverage to throw that punch. That is ring intelligence. And if you can think through that, see it in your head and deliver, I mean, a guy like that is just kind of sky's the limit type of talent. Really, really incredible. And it's interesting to me as I think about it, we've lost a lot of prospective American heavyweight boxers in the last few decades because they're going to more lucrative careers in the NFL, in the NBA. Well, you got kind of a similar cultural issue with Dominican athletes because if they're any good, they're playing baseball. They're not boxing. But, Rodriguez has talked about that and said, I didn't want to play baseball. I like boxing. So, when a talent like this emerges, it's because they're damn good to start with. They're really motivated. Otherwise, they would have been funneled into, that huge machine that is, Dominican baseball. So there's just a lot to like here. But I say put him in with just one of these, jerky, meat, tough, Mexican, Panamanian fighters and, see what he can do.
This fight, these fights took place in LA. Same night as this card over in Los Angeles. You had a card on Fox PBC headlining. That card was Erislandy Lara, who holds the title at 154 pounds. Last week, I mentioned how um, uh, Sean Porter fought a guy by the name of Formella, kin to Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope. Um, Same situation was here with Lara, who fought a guy by the name of Vendetti. Vendetti, he's kin to Formella. He's kin to Bob Hope. He's also No Hope. Um, you knew going in that Vendetti, not the level of fighter that Lara is, not even close. And Lara won. He won with ease, in my opinion. I don't even think he got out of first gear in that fight. That's the side. That's how that speaks to the difference in just overall talent and skill. Talk about the fight if you want, Gail. Not much to mention, in my opinion, because it is what it is. Lara does what he does. But let's talk about Lara moving forward. He has a belt, right, at 154 pounds, WBA version. When you look at the landscape of the division, you got Rosario. He's going to fight Charlo Jamel, I believe, in a unification bout next month on the 26th. You got Teixeira out there. Um, you got fighters at above him, Lara at 60. You got fighters below him at 147. Is he kind of in a no man's land situation here? Because he's fought just about everybody. Um, who's going to want to fight him at this stage of his career? Where is he going to get the final big fight on what has been a pretty lengthy career?
It is going to be a problem. You know that he did exactly what we all expected we'd see him do. You know, his craft is impeccable. It was a 118. You know, it was a complete blowout on the cards type of fight um, against a opponent that was a late substitute who was limited. I mean, he did go the distance, which at least puts him in better standing than Ramon Alvarez. I will say that. So,
Yeah,
right, what happens? 154 is such an interesting division because when you look through this sort of de facto round robin tournament that's been going on, you look at, this guy who beat this guy, but then he beat so and so, who, by the way, beat this. And once you've played musical chairs, yeah, they've all faced each other. They've done this round robin tournament. They're all, at a pretty high level. When you start trying to figure out the pecking order, it's incredibly difficult. You would kind of put Charlo at the top of the heap, but it all depends on the next fight. I think Lara is going to have to, at this point, sit on the sidelines a little bit. Is he going to have to wait to see what talent is rising up and fight some of those guys? Wait to fight some of those fresher guys? Because if I'm, the Harrisons, the Herds, the Lubins, the Charlos, the Williams of the world, either you've already been through it with him, or you think, what are my other options? He just isn't anyone's first option. So he's in a bit of a tough spot. And it's no fault of his own. He has had a long career, but he's making no moves toward retiring. He says he's 37. Of course, those Cuban birth certificates.
that could mean 40.
We really don't know. Right. We don't know. So, how much further do we want to see him go? And
A
coming up,
question.
it's, maybe worth hanging around to see.
A comment and a couple of questions a couple of comments in the question from Lisa in the chat. First of all, she says that Lara completely outclassed the guy. I absolutely agree. She says, I should say, that Lara says he wants to fight Jamel. I doubt they'll put him in with
That's
Lubin.
not happening.
Put Lubin in there with him. I kind of agree with that too. But in terms of who Lara could fight next, she mentioned what about a fight against Tony Harrison? Tony Harrison, who of course fought
Yeah.
Jamel last year twice. First time he beat him. Well, fought him in late 2018, I should say. Beat him, upset him to win that WBC title. They fought a rematch late last year, and Charlo reversed things and got the decision. So, in terms of a possible fight between Lara and Tony Harrison, your thoughts?
Mm, you know, seems like we're doing some recycling here. I'll tell you who on the list I'd like to see him fight. Now, do I think it is going to happen or these guys would be eager for it? Not too sure. But the two names that pop out at me are either Tszyu, who we're going to talk about, or Israel Madrimov, both young, rising stars of the division. Test yourself a guy that's, as tricky and tough as Erislandy Lara. He would be a good test for both of them. And I'd like to see young, ambitious guys like this put that O up. Put that O on the record. Madrimov is 25. Tszyu is also 25. Tszyu is 16-0. Madrimov's only 6-0. But he's the kind of guy with that massive amateur record that might fit really nicely up against Lara. And he's an ambitious guy. So, why not freshen the mix up a little bit, and bring some of these other names into it? I think Lara would be a terrific test for either one of those guys.
On the undercard of Lara fighting another one of Bob Hope's cousins, No Hope. You had and shout out to MG in the chat for mentioning this because I didn't put it in the docket. You had Alfredo Angulo, who was fighting a guy by the name of Hernandez. Hernandez was a late substitute for Caleb Truax. This fight was supposed to be a IBS super middleweight eliminator. Hernandez ended up winning, upset decision win. Um, I know people have issues with the score, with the unanimous decision, particularly the 98-92 score for Hernandez, because Angulo threw a lot more punches in the fight. He landed more. It could be argued he landed with harder shots. I have no problem with the decision is because of this. As I said, this was an elimination bout, IBF super middleweight, and if if Angulo would have won, that means he would have been next in line for a fight against Caleb Plant. And I'm sorry, Gail, I don't want to see that. I would not have want to. I would not have want to see a fight between Plant and Angulo. Angulo was long in the tooth. Uh, Plant would have beat him up and beat him up bad. Um, you know, to me, put him in there with the likes of a young prime Caleb Plant at this point would have been a kind of a bit sadistic. I just don't know. No, I don't want to see it. So even if you feel that Angulo deserved the decision, maybe it's just me, but I'm kind of glad he didn't get the decision because I don't want to put him in there with a Caleb Plant. Not at this stage of his career. No.
I'm completely with you on this one. There is enormous affection, especially in Southern California, Northern Baja, for Angulo. We've seen him now, for 15 years in the ring. He gives his best every time. He's super accessible to the fans. He's just sort of that regular guy, typical, tough Baja product. But damn, he's 38 years old. He's been in some wars.
And he got a bad eye.
He just gotta be done. Come on. Nobody expected him to beat Peter Quillen. That's the only reason he had that fight this weekend, is because of that upset of Quillen, which was razor thin split decision to begin with. So, yeah, El Perro, please. I think you need to think about your family and your future and get beat up for a living. The way he fights, he he doesn't know the meaning of the word defense. It's just flat out face first, right in there, and he's slowed down. Yeah, he's still got some power. Yeah, he can still land a shot here and there, but oh, please, I just hate to see guys like this, just ground to a pulp in their final days of their career. I think he needs to be done. Yeah, and I have no interest in seeing Caleb Plant, pile drive him. I just don't.
And obviously, Daniel has joined us. Daniel from the Inscriber. I think part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me, thinks he joined late because he was watching the Miami Heat game because they were very impressive in a win against the Milwaukee Bucks
Yeah, buddy,
tonight.
I bet he was.
And I'll bring him into the discussion. We're talking about Alfredo Angulo and his loss against Hernandez over the weekend on the undercard of Lara and his win. And I'll bring the same issues to you, Daniel. Well, not pose the same issue, but kind of ask the same question. Uh, some people will say that Angulo deserved the win against Hernandez. For me, I'm kind of glad he didn't get the decision because a win would have meant a fight against, because this was supposed to be an eliminator. A win would have meant a fight against Caleb Plant, and I don't want to see him. I don't want to see Angulo against Plant. Um, uh, is rude. It would be cruel. Plant would just beat the dog shit out of him. And Angulo, he already has his physical issues. Everybody knows he has a bad eye. Everybody knows he's old. Put him in there against Caleb Plant. I just don't want to see the results of that. Maybe it's just maybe I'm being too kind-hearted, but no. I'm kind of, in a sense, I'm kind of glad that Angulo didn't get the decision here. Your thoughts?
Oh, Jesus. I didn't, honestly. I forgot about that fight. I thought maybe, okay, the opponent dropped off. I thought maybe this is a sign from God to Angulo saying, you know what, maybe you should not be in the ring anymore. Nope, that opponent, even in winning, made Angulo, even for what he is, look somewhat good. But I agree with you, Mike. I'm so thankful he didn't win the fight. Because, first of all, Caleb Plant gained from beating a mollywopping, a beaten down, injured, way past who fallen to should have been put out the pasture in the boxing room a long time ago. Now, part of me wants to commend the PBC for finding an opponent that was ready for that type of fight. Even in the sparks where Angulo looks somewhat good, you still were fearful because it just didn't look right. Even in the sequences where he was fighting well, he didn't look right. Part of me watching a robot on slow motion, and I'm glad he didn't win the fight. And somebody in that circle needs to take him to the side and say, like, you've done enough. You've done enough. You don't have to go through this anymore. You can rest. I'm pretty sure he hasn't wasted, and you let your career be, which was a pretty decent career, but he didn't win.
Okay, I'm sorry I was on mute. I had muted myself because my stomach is grumbling, kind of hungry here. I ain't ate yet, but I apologize for that, for my stomach grumbling right there. Let's move on to. No, I'm gonna stick to you, Daniel. because you came on kind of late. Your thoughts on Ramirez and the fight against Postol and the backlash that Ramirez has received, because a lot of people are saying, and I agree with this assessment, that okay, he got that win against Postol, but if he thinks that's going to be good enough to even come close to defeating Josh Taylor later on in the year or early next year, he's sadly mistaken.
I'm watching the highlights now just to refresh myself on this. But this, unfortunately, one of the things that feeds into the argument that Jose Ramirez needs the crowd and got the best of him. Because it wasn't like he fought terribly. He fought pretty well. Is it that Postol, even at this stage, is a really good technical fighter. He has range for that weight size, patience when it comes into it. So, and he knows how to box. So it's, you can see where you can say Ramirez won, but you can easily make the case that Postol should have won. And in all honesty, if this is the launching pad to the fight with Josh Taylor, nah, son. At this stage, no, you better hope that somewhere near the end of the year, if California, that you're able to open up Fresno, because that fight, because that into the notion, like I mentioned in the beginning, that he needs the crowd to bring him to another level. And if you're seeing, by the way, thank you for the shout out. Game 1 versus the Freak. Jimmy Butler, 40 points. But if teams and fighters are just different inside the bubble, inside of the atmosphere where how you don't see fans cheering throughout, it's a bit of a different vibe, and some really cannot do well on it. And I hope Ramirez is not one of them, but this is a case where he might be one of them.
One final bout to talk about before we move on to the news. We're going to focus on one news story here, and going back to you, Gail, and you can follow up, Daniel, if either of you saw the fight. Uh, uh, you mentioned in the discussion about Lara who he could fight coming up, and the guy you mentioned was one Tszyu. Tszyu, son of former junior welterweight champion Costa Tszyu, unified champion Costa Tszyu, and Tszyu in Australia fought former welterweight world title holder Jeff Horn, and Tszyu dominated, put him down in, I want to say, round 3. I thought he was bossing there from second 1. He had his way with him, bigger, stronger, kind of like his introduction, if you will, into kind of the, I guess, quasi mainstream. A lot of people felt he was being protected coming in. And look, I know Jeff Horn is an older fighter, Gail, but he's still kind of a name, particularly in that country, right? And kind of a breakout showcase fight for him, and it really opens the door for Tszyu, to become not only become kind of the guy in Australia right now, but bring him over into like the masses on a worldwide scale. Um, Question and put an asterisk over the opponent if you want. Still, fairly impressive performance, as you know. He dog walk he dog walked this guy, and really a fight that was really easy work.
It was easy work. This fight could have been stopped 2 or 3 rounds before it was. Horn was down in the 3rd round. Horn was down in the 6th round. He was just getting the crap kicked out of him. And it was being done in such a steely, surgical way. Tszyu has that very stone face, no expression, determined look to him. He never raises an eyebrow. He never telegraphs anything. He just gets down to business. He does look a lot like his dad. He really does.
Oh, he's spitting. He's a spitting image of his dad, except he's
he
just
really
taller.
is. Yeah. It was an excellent performance. And if you're going to get up basically in the middle of the night on the West Coast of the United States to watch a fight, it better be good, better deliver. And this card was fun to watch all the way around, and fans in the audience, interestingly enough, in Queensland's Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. So terrific sort of introduction to the world at this level from Tszyu. And maybe he's finally going to be the fighter who's the son of an accomplished boxer who surpasses his dad. We've had plenty of second generation guys have respectable careers, legitimate careers. Some have fallen short of expectations. It's got to be rough when you're the son of a famous name, a Eubanks, a Chavez, a Mosley. That's just not easy for anybody. But Tszyu might be the one to do it. I was very impressed. He just laid down the law. And, he seems like he's ready for anything. I really do think he's ready to go after some of the second tier guys in the welterweight or the super welterweight division. And, if he really wanted to open himself up to a test with Lara, I think he'd be all about it. Why not?
Tszyu, Daniel, he's ranked in the top 10, I believe, by the BC and the IBF. I believe he's ranked as high as number 4 or 5 by the IBF. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you agree with Gail's assessment of Tszyu in that he's ready to not just take this next step in his career, but why not possibly put him in there against the likes of a Lara? Why not try to seek a fight with either a Charlo or Rosario, maybe late this year or early or at some point in 2021?
He's done all he could in Australia. Right now, it's a beat in Australia, and didn't just beat him. That was sad. I'm sorry. That was sad. You saw the corner. They literally asked him, "Do you have anything left?" And he flat out said no. So you knew it has the goods. Yeah, he has to make the jump because if you put him in somebody that's very defensive minded, that's Rick Roberts, that's going to make him change the game plan. It's not somebody like Horn who depended on his size. If it's against small, then yeah, he's going to have somebody that could be bigger than him in the area. If it's small, it's not as big, but has a real big chip on his shoulders. So there's a lot of fighters that you can do. We can put into in the area. One of the young kids versus young kids. You can put them, if they can work it out, if there's a way to work it out, and that would be a good test for Munguia too. So the kid's ready, done all he can in the land down under, and I'm glad that he did it in Townsville. Townsville's
Problem is Munguia's moving up to 160
a hell of a
though.
town. I was there. I know, but if you're putting Mel and Maul in the same area, it's in the same ballpark. So it depends on what you do when it comes to Munguia, but he's ready. He can make the jump right now and do it. It's just a matter of no longer a matter of if. It's a matter matter of when now.
What? I'm trying to think who I would like to see him in there with. Ah, ah, ah. What about a fight against J Rock? What about a fight against Jared Hurd? Um, what about a fight against? Look, I saw Jack Coquet last week fight. I felt he lost the fight. His fight. I can't. Basal, however you pronounce his last name, I apologize. What about a fight against someone like a Coquet, like an IBF eliminator for number, or fight the number one contender in the IBF? Uh, uh, um, I can't pronounce his name right now. But yeah, there are fights out there for him. What about a fight against Lubin? I'm just throwing some names around there. Your thoughts?
Oh, Lubin would be awesome. Two young guys, and you wouldn't be scared of one of them losing all because Lubin's already lost fight. Fear there when it comes to him. So if it's against Lubin, sign me up.
What say you, Gail?
You know, the more I think about it, the more I still go back to, you know, put him up against, put him up against Lara, put him up against Madrimov, put him up against one of these other young guns that wants to prove himself in the division. I wouldn't complain if he goes after some of these other guys, a Jason Rosario, a J Rock, a Jared Hurd, Lubin. They're all sorting themselves out right now. There's a lot of good options for him. And I think he needs to test himself against some of these guys. I mean, based on how he took
not just test himself, but for me, get him out of Australia. To Daniel's point, he's done enough there. He's proved himself there.
I mean,
well, I know there's travel. I know there's travel restrictions and whatnot.
Plus,
but if they can get that cleared out and get him a fight here in the States, please do so.
That'd be fine.
He has the name, he has the background in terms of his father and whatnot. He has a fairly entertaining style. I think American fans will enjoy him.
I'm sure they would. Can he get a full gate in front of him like he did in a stadium last week right now? No. I mean, the truth is, you want to do a big gate with a crowd of, all the trimmings, etc. No, our guys need to go there right now.
They're not allowing us over there, Gail.
Well,
I don't think.
Well, they are. You've just got to go weeks ahead of time so you can quarantine. And a lot of guys don't want to, shut themselves down for forever time it is. But I think a lot of our, more common paths and beliefs about how fights get made, they're all being turned sideways right now for other possibilities. And the truth is, that's the first time I have seen a big crowd at a fight, at a prize fight anywhere for a long time. And card reflected it as well. Some undercard fights were damned entertaining, particularly the women's bantamweight fight was excellent. So, I say.
Or as Lisa asking the question about Lara fighting Harrison, why not, if it could happen, make a fight between Harrison and Tszyu in Australia?
I'd be great with that. Yeah, why not? And I think some of these guys who, want to negotiate up a little bit, willingness to travel, the gate makes it possible. I get that the time difference is, problematic for American audiences, but I'm not sure any of these guys would be the A side against Tszyu for that matter anyway. So if they want to bring everyone over, pay them decently to do it, dictate some terms, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? It's a smart way to go.
Indeed, indeed. Let's move on to talk about the news here. We're going to talk about one guy particularly, one news story. Last week we discussed you, Gail, on the ladies show. We talked about Keith Thurman calling out Terence Crawford for a fight, and we discussed the possibility of it happening and how it's advantageous for both men, particularly Bud. Well, after the show was over, news broke that Crawford is in negotiations, apparently pretty serious negotiations for a fight against Kell Brook. I understand that Brook has been offered between 1 and 2 million for that fight. I don't know if they've come if Brook and his promoter Eddie Hearn are the process and whether they're going to accept that offer or try to hold out for more money. The point is for me, Gail, and you can follow Daniel. Uh, the level of disappointment, if you would have disappointment, if this fight was to get finalized, going from going back and forth from a potential bout against Thurman, or at least talk of it, and you settling for a fight against Kell Brook, really, Team Crawford? I know you number one pound for pound fighter in a lot of people's estimation, mine included, and you're up there at the top of the ladder in terms of prominent fighters in the sport. But as a lot of people have discussed, you're in a position where you need a big fight. You need a significant fight, sir. Brook ain't it.
Considering his alternatives, which are few, nobody that's on the PBC side of the fence, I don't care what Thurman calls out, nobody on that side of the fence is getting a fight with Crawford right now. He's completely frozen out. So, Kell Brook is a name that will draw interest from the UK fans. Do I think for a minute it will be very competitive? No. Is there money in it? Yeah, because of the UK market, because of Brook's stature, despite his diminished abilities, Crawford doesn't really have a lot more options. Apparently, he offered him 1.5 million. Pardon me, to do the fight. I think it's the best of his bad options. I mean, better this than nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty
Better
much it.
than
Because
sitting on his butt on the bench, which is no good for anybody. So, at least this moves the needle. At least this gets him out there.
yeah, and not only that, fortunately, we're in the realm now where we have to do things by proxy. Even Brook at this stage, people will use it as a compare him with Spence.
Yes.
If he's able to take out Kell Brook faster than Spence will, the comparisons. At the end of the day, it is what it is as far as what you can do. Because obviously, it's been pretty obvious are not going to be able to sit down for a welterweight fight unless it involves either floor. And when it comes to the situation with Bud, it's also a situation we need to see how he's going to be out there. Like we talked about Jose Ramirez. We know Bud can do things in crowd, but he does feed off his home crowd, particularly when it comes to fighting in Omaha. Now, yeah, you're gonna be in front of nobody. In front of nobody. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing for a lot of people, that especially in the showcase fight where you've seen Sean Porter fight, where you're gonna see Spence and Garcia fight when everybody else is making plays. So it's a good thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. People that are upset about it, it's the only play that he has right now.
Well, and
Like,
let's remember, he's got
to
history in
your
the
point, Gail, do
UK.
you really want to fight at all this year?
Yeah, he's got to have something, and he does have history in the
Yep.
UK. Remember, he went there and took Ricky Burns' belt off of him, so the UK fans know him. And I would say, as far as the home crowd, I don't think the comparison between Crawford and Ramirez, Fresno to Omaha, is exactly the same. Crawford's been into hostile territory and he does just fine. I think he is one of those guys. He clearly enjoys fighting at home in Omaha, but he's had plenty of fights elsewhere, and I think when he's in that ring, I think the blinkers are on. I really do. Crawford's very, very focused. He dials up that mean streak that he keeps hidden the rest of the time, and he's fine. But he still needs to have a fight. And this is fine.
No, it's just one of those situations where, no, what I don't mean the whole notion of like that people see him feed more a little bit in front of the home crowd, but he's just as home in Madison Square Garden as he is in Omaha. So territory is not going to be a factor when it comes to area. The factor that's going to be is it puts his name out there, and again, somebody who you can say, like, we have to remember, he took risks himself. Risk cost him his orbital bone on both eyes in separate years, but it's a fight that needs to be made for the sake of the fact that you need to get him out there. Because freezing him out, looking to try to get, or the main reason that Manny is no longer top rank is because his team did not want any part of Bud. Have that going, and when you have everybody else making moves, you have to make moves. So I'm fine
And
with
that's
this.
why, too. I'm back now. That's why, to Lisa's point, I slightly disagree that he's being frozen out, because that's his own doing. He shouldn't have resigned for that long of a deal. He shouldn't have. He didn't. No one told him he had to resign with Top Rank. Not when at that time all the other prominent welterweights were across the street outside of Manny. This is part and parcel of his own doing. If you're going to resign with Top Rank, sign for a shortened one or sign on a one fight per fight basis. And because of he's in a situation right now, you got Spence over there at PBC. You got Garcia over there at PBC. You got Porter over at PBC. You get a fighter like Ugas over at PBC. So, while I understand the rationale, I just don't agree with it. This is in part and parcel his own doing, and you do not say, given our current climate, given the fact that we're in a pandemic, that you should deserve more money when there's no live gate. You can't do that. So there's been some mistakes on his end that he has to be held accountable to, that he has to own up to. Proceed.
Well, we can say he shouldn't have signed that deal, but in all honesty, all of us at the time, did any of us see Manny leave Top Rank at that point in time? I'll be honest, I didn't see Manny leave. I didn't think that Manny at that point in time when Bud signed that extension. But it happened. Yeah, it is a mistake on his end to do so. But Here's also the factor that unfortunately that plays into it. Asking for money. We all know who else is asking for money. Senor Canelo Alvarez. He's asking for all his money. And it comes to his own fight, which is why we haven't not going to see a Canelo fight until the end of the year at the earliest. When
Canelo's not fighting this year.
it comes into this, so he's doing it. Yeah, but this is the main key. This has always been the biggest key when it comes into this. Canelo has at least earned that cachet where you can say he's worth that amount of money. But for all the accolades that he's gotten, so unfortunately, he can't ask that, and he's in nowhere near any type of negotiating position.
One question I'll go to you on this one, Gail. Lisa's asking a couple of questions here. One, she says that let me put it up here. She said they made Fury and Wilder work together. True, but different dynamic here. I would say the context is different between Wilder, Fury, and Crawford versus the other fighters at PBC. They were willing to work together, and I think there's some people behind the scenes are not willing to make this fight to work, particularly from Arum and Crawford's side. I will put that out there. Another question from Lisa, and this has been some chatter along boxing social media, particularly on YouTube. Her question is your thoughts on apparently Gary Russell. For those who do not know, Gary Russell went on a YouTube channel and talked about how he basically mushed or smacked Bud in the face back during their amateur days, and that led into a back and forth between Bud and Russell on social media about what happened and whatnot. Well, Russell, I think either a couple of weeks ago, said that his team, his representation, made an official offer to fight Bud, and he's willing to go up to 147 to make that fight happen. What do you think? What do you make of all of this, Gail? The back and forth between Bud and Crawford, and what Crawford allegedly did to Bud, and the fact that Crawford, Russell, excuse me, is taking it to the next step and supposedly sent out an offer to fight Terence Crawford. Is this just talk? Is Russell sitting here selling wolf tickets? What do you make of all of this?
Yap. Talk is cheap. Really, he's going up 4 weight divisions. He's going up 4 weight divisions to fight Crawford. Are we kidding? I don't think anybody has seen any paperwork, any verification. They can talk smack all they want. That's great. Have a good time. It's entertaining. Please, people, do not take that stuff seriously. Stop believing stuff you read on boxing Twitter and on YouTube. That's just not verified information at all. It's strictly for entertainment purposes, as they say. That's not happening. Now, going back to the other question, well, they made Wilder Fury. Yeah, you know what? A $17 million gate will do that. We don't have that right now. So that's just off the table. Money always talks. And until the day comes, hopefully not that far in the distant future, where there's a big, big gate beckoning for a big fight, you'll see a fight get made, but not right now.
Indeed. Let's move on to some other news. But before we move on to recapping, previewing some fights, is any other news? Gail, I think Daniel had to step out. He'll be right back. Any other news that you want to mention before we start previewing fights?
Well, speaking of the aforementioned Canelo Alvarez, apparently the notion that he was going to fight a mandatory in Ildirim is suddenly vanished into thin air. That's not gone away pretty quick. So apparently the discussion is back on for the same two potential opponents that make the most sense under our current circumstances at this time, which is either Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders. So, are you Team Saunders? Or are you Team Smith as far as a opponent goes? I'd probably rather see Callum Smith. I don't know which opponent, Canelo favors really either one. Frankly, I don't think he's going to have trouble either way. But again, he's not quite in the position that Bud Crawford's in, where he needs to fight for visibility, because the truth is he really doesn't. He's in a position where it wouldn't kill him to sit out. The ones that are just about on life support if Canelo doesn't fight are either DAZN or Golden Boy or both. So they're going to do whatever it takes, within reason and according to what the Treasury will permit, to get this thing on the books this year. So it ain't dead yet, folks.
I still say that Canelo's not going to fight this year, but if you were a fighting woman, who would you think that Canelo will step in the ring with next? I say Smith.
I say Smith, and that's the fight I prefer, frankly.
Because Billy Joe Saunders, his stupid ass don't deserve it. Yeah, I said it.
Oh yeah,
he just doesn't. He keeps shooting himself in the foot.
He's straight up
with his actions outside of the ring or his mouth outside of the ring. He can't help himself. He's his own worst enemy.
Yeah, and Canelo doesn't play that. He doesn't like that. Canelo conduct. You can say however you feel about him, or how you think of him as a fighter, the way he does business, but he conducts himself, in a fairly serious manner. He takes his sport seriously. He trains hard. He's very disciplined. He doesn't like guys that are playing games or getting in trouble. He just doesn't like to tolerate that shit. And good for him.
Same question to you, Daniel, regarding Canelo Alvarez. If you were a betting man, who would you think Canelo? Who do you think Canelo's going to fight next?
Callum would actually make the most sense right now. Because you expect him to fight that mandatory WBC threw at him? No. If he doesn't, if he's not willing to fight Golovkin, then Callum's right. And come on, Mike. You were a little bit nice when it came into there. When it came to Billy Ho, I guess I have to be the one to do it. Billy Ho's bitch ass does not deserve a shot at another world title. He's home in the UK and probably talk smack, and he'll be one of those. He'll be always one of those guys that he had the potential. He could have done it, but stupidity was his undoing. And we've seen plenty of people being done in sports. He's just the latest one to do it.
Yeah, you basically echoed what I said. You just added it on and pretty much added on with some comments that I was thinking, but just was not willing to say, because quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah. He's a good fighter. Let me just say that for the record. He is a good fighter. He can fight, but he's just annoying. He's just annoying from a personality perspective. outside the ring, what he says, and I don't trust that he comes in great shape for every fight. You know, that's the difference between him and Fury. When Fury's mind is on the game, it's on the game, and he fights at a high level. With Saunders, and this is a Fury who's we know his struggles. It basically took 3 years outside the ring because he was on that drinking excessively alcohol. He was on that white, but Billy Joe is just him. He just could just be a dummy, just be an idiot in terms of how he conducts himself. Fury's when Fury's on it, he's on it. Saunders, to me, he's never fully on it. Again, outside of David Lemieux, when has he really been impressive? I'll wait. I'll wait. Um, yeah, enough of him. Let's move on to some preview some fights here. We're going to focus on one fight. One Jamel Herring. He's finally getting the opportunity to defend his WBO title at 130 pounds. Going to fight a fighter by the name of Oquendo Gale. This fight was postponed twice because to show you the seriousness of this pandemic that we're dealing with, Herring tested positive twice for COVID-19. He's finally healthy now. He's overcome those issues. He's going to fight on the 5th in Las Vegas at the Bubble. I look at this fight and I just think it's just a separation in class here. I saw Herring against, not Herring, but I saw Oquendo against Lamont Roach. I was like, yeah, he does some good things, but if Herring is on it, if he's on it in terms of his skill set, if he doesn't get lazy in there, I just see Herring outboxing Oquendo, and it's going to be by decision. It's not going to be the most exciting fight in the world because Herring is not the most exciting fighter, but he is fast, he is a southpaw, and he is skilled. And unless he gets caught with something big, I just think his hands are too fast and his feet are too fast, and he's too much of a mover. He fights at too many angles. That would be more than enough for the likes of an Oquendo. Your thoughts?
You have to give any title holder credit for fighting during the pandemic at whatever level, being willing to do it, being willing to stay busy, being willing to get in front of the fans with a smaller paycheck. And Herring's been willing to do that. Herring's been joining a regular Friday night sort of roundtable of boxing that's been being held during this pandemic. Just a group of boxing writers and allies. And, you know, Herring, I guess, is training, and he's training in Omaha. You know, I guess just so damn bored at night, he's just jumping on our chats every week. And he just said, you know, I'm willing to, you know, fight for the checks they're offering. I'm good. I'm fine. I need to stay busy. He wants that fight with Frampton. So yeah, Oquendo gets him to the next, you know, the next matchup. Frampton had his version of Oquendo in replacement Darren Trainer, who he had, you know, no problem with. This is going to be Herring's version. I agree that it's very possible it'll go to the cards and be a very lopsided decision. And then we'll get that Herring-Frampton showdown. And I'm confident both of them are willing to make that fight, crowds or no crowds. You know, Herring has made it really clear that he's very devoted to boxing. He puts, you know, 120% effort. You know, he's got that Marine mentality. That's just how he works as a human being. And on the other hand, he recognizes there's a lot to life besides boxing. So he fights for a living, but he doesn't live to fight in the same way a lot of these other guys who just hang on forever do. He isn't going to be one of those guys. So kudos to him. He's been through a hell of a lot in his life. That guy's a winner no matter what happens in the ring. It'll be interesting to see what he moves on to after he's done boxing. I expect equally good things no matter what he goes to. So enjoy it for what it is. You know, it's our only real title fight this Labor Day weekend. Semper Fi, Sergeant Herring, go for it.
Indeed, and I have to let me acknowledge that Herring, he also fought the aforementioned Lamont Roach in his last fight, beat him by decision. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts on Herring and his upcoming fight against Oquendo.
Hopefully, third time's a charm. Hopefully, nothing happens. Another test comes up, or somebody in the circle pops up again, and it lays things further. No, it should be. I expect Henry to probably pull it out, and there's gonna be some decision making after this fight gonna happen because he's more than likely can make 130, but there's some people who are gonna that see that could probably make him some money, and I would mind if he took that decision lightweight, but get this taken care of first, and he'll be perfectly fine.
Indeed, I think we're going to start to shut the show down, but I have to ask Gail. I've been paying attention to your avatar here, and I need for you to explain for those who are watching us live on YouTube. Explain that avatar.
So hopefully y'all recognize the dazzling pearly whites of one Mr. Jamal Charlo. So Jamal and Sergey Derevyanchenko and the undercard fighters on that half.
And I'm putting you up for those who are watching us live on YouTube. I'm putting you up on the big screen to let everybody see.
So you see Jamal. So Jamal, Sergey Derevyanchenko, Andre Rozier, Ronnie Shields, and the undercard fighters all did a media Zoom conference call today. So here's Jamal sitting there with this DeLorean behind him in his house. In his house. He's not sitting in the garage. So we go through the news conference and we're looking at this. And of course, I'm getting screenshots of this. And finally, Brian Custer, who was hosting this news conference, asked, Maul, what's that DeLorean sitting behind you for? What's going on with that? And Jamal says, it's because I'm the future of boxing. Get it? Future of boxing.
With the doors and the car. Yeah, corny, but I got it.
Because the car's from the movie Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, yep.
Yeah. And so his Twitter handle's Future of Boxing, if you don't know. Yeah. And so all of us did the sort of the face palm and it's like, okay. But I got to tell you, I don't think I have ever seen anyone stage themselves like that for a news conference. And tip of the hat to you, Jamal. That was impressive. Got a huge kick out of it, and I had to honor him with the avatar. I will also say, and I expect to hear much more of this leading up to the fight, Jamal used the platform on several occasions to delve into social justice issues, in particular the issue of getting justice for Breonna Taylor. So I found that very impressive as well. And I hope we'll hear a lot more of that leading up to the big bout on the 26th.
And given our political and social climate, I tip my hat to him and salute him for doing that. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. So I'm going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk media. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Well, even these days, I'm willing to talk Major League Baseball, coming to you from Slam Diego itself. But you can find my regular boxing column at Communities Digital News, which is COM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com.
And I'll go to you, Daniel. for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, and once again, congratulations to your Miami Heat winning Game 1 of the conference semifinals series against Milwaukee. Jimmy Butler just went off, particularly in the fourth quarter. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, so you can find me at Twitter, Rockets99, RAWKZ99. Definitely catch me on there because, oh, Jesus Christ, the memes are perfect. And I did want to answer Lisa's question because I know she asked it for the. I don't take any credibility of a featherweight challenging a welterweight. That's what jumping probably is going to move up a division himself pretty soon. So yeah, that's how much credibility I take into it. Fake Frank Warren had last night on Twitter when he trolled people saying that Wilder
Um, Before I give my little spiel of where you can go if you want to talk boxing and whatnot with me, um, it would be remiss if I didn't take a little bit of time to note the passing of someone who passed away way too soon, and I want to take the opportunity to talk about it now. Um, for those who've been sleeping under a rock, Chadwick Boseman, um, most notably known for his portrayal of Black Panther, also portrayal of Jackie Robinson in 42, uh, James Brown of Get On Up, um, the Five Bloods that dropped earlier this summer, um, shockingly, unexpectedly passed away at age 43 due to complications from colon cancer. Um, if you're a fan of comics, uh, uh, particularly as well as those, particularly in the Black community, uh, this was a devastating loss, Daniel. Um, I heard about it Friday night while I was in a workout. Just took a brief break, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks, and I couldn't do nothing. It took me some time to get back in my mood to get my workout done. Twitter has been giving Twitter has been mourning his passing ever since. I want to give the opportunity now for you to kind of give some your condolences here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report in terms of the really, really, really unfortunate timing of Chadwick Boseman.
this one was particularly tough because you didn't knew. Nobody knew. When I got the notification on the phone that this was a troll, until a few news outlets produced how he died, how long he's had colon cancer, and that he did so many. He was so active in those 4 years, three unfortunately to stage 4, along with doing everything else. So war shows, how how can anybody not look at that? And it's not only the work ethic, it's what he meant, particularly you see it in the African American community of Black Panther, gave hope and life to a lot of, because to that point they really, at least in the modern sense a somebody that they could say is a superhero that looked like them. Chadwick gave people that, and that's to see the main tributes to see and to know to know the level of pain that endured every day of his life for the past 4 years.
I take this especially.
It's
Go ahead.
unthinkable
I'm
in many
sorry. I thought you was
ways.
finished. I'm sorry.
No,
I take this somewhat personal because uh, I may be guilty of disclosing my ages, but we're not too far off in age, and we're from the same state. We're both South Carolinians. Whatever you want to say about the film Black Panther in terms of how good or it may or may not have been to some, you cannot doubt the or downplay the impact of it, symbolic, substantive, and whatnot in terms of what it meant to a particular community, a particular segment of folks. Um, yes, it was a mostly black film, but it had universal meaning to all. When you see white kids dressing as Black Panther in the outfit for uh, uh, Halloween, that means something. When you see white kids, Hispanic, Latino kids, Asian kids playing with a Black Panther doll or action figure, I should say. Excuse me, action figure. That means something. And I want to give a couple of shout outs to Lisa, who says in the chat, "R.I.P. Black Power." She also says, "My sincerest condolences to his family and friends." And to your point, Daniel, he was diagnosed with this with colon cancer in 2016. So that means that a lot of his work, his recent work, and I believe the filming of Black Panther was done while he had stage 3, stage 4 cancer. He just didn't tell anyone. A remarkable man, a remarkable career, who did so much in such a short period of time. Um, the impact that he made uh, uh, um, will be go on for will be timeless. He is a timeless figure, and yeah, it's just such a sad passing, a life gone far too quickly. But he will be remembered um, for time and memoriam. And yeah, man, just so sad and so tragic. He will be sorely missed. And Gail, she had to step out, but she also has some very kind and passionate words in terms of the passing of Chadwick Boseman on Twitter. You can check her out on Twitter page and whatnot. So yeah, for everybody here at Pound for Pound Box Report, our regular panel, Lisa, who's joining us live in the chat, we send our deepest condolences to the family and friends of one Chadwick Boseman. For those who want to talk boxing or music or fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the show, you can find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report for the time being on the blog page, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. If you're watching us live on YouTube, and if you're watching us now live on YouTube, please make sure to hit that like button. Please hit sure to hit that subscribe button, and spread the word about the show, please. Descriptions of where you can find the show on social media, where you can find the show on all platforms that carry RSS feed for podcasting is below, where you can donate. The link to my online coach page. I am an online coach for Beachbody. If you want to find out, starting a new fitness challenge this month, group challenge, 6 weeks of the work. If you're interested in that, if you're interested in taking your fitness up to the next level, please check me out on the blog page or just hit me up on Twitter, be it at Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page, which is at P4P Box Report on my personal Twitter page at Brother JR76. And for those who may be interested, wink, wink, not Daniel, there is a new program that just hit the scene, a boxing-based program, not as strenuous as 6 weeks of the work. But if you want something fun, boxing-related, a combination of boxing moves and weightlifting, I think you'll be interested, Daniel, and I'm really serious about that. It's called 10 Rounds. You can check it out now on Beachbody.com, Beachbody on Demand. Got a 2-week trial running throughout the year. So, and a lot of other free packages throughout the year on Beachbody.com. So again, if you're interested, particularly in that 10 rounds, I think for those who want kind of a moderate between kind of easy, low impact and high impact, I think that fits right up folks' alley. Please check me out on my coaching page there. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Herring and Oquendo, and we will do a preview of. Well, no, next week. No. Next week is Labor Day. Excuse me, folks. Next week is Labor Day, so we will take that week off. We will rejoin in 2 weeks. We will rejoin you guys in 2 weeks, and during that time, we will do a recap of Herring and Oquendo, and we will do some previews of some fights happening on the weekend of the. We may talk about Anthony Yarde, who's going to fight on the 12th. Anthony Yarde, he's making his return to the ring following his loss against Sergey Kovalev. So yeah, next week will be a week off to observe Labor Day, but we will be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks to recap Herring and Oquendo, and to recap Yarde, and who's fighting a guy by the name of Spellman, going to fight in London. So we will talk about those fights. So yeah, for Gail, who joined us earlier in the show, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. I want to thank Lisa. I want to thank MG is here. For Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 297 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you next time. And once again, rest in ultimate power. Chadwick Boseman, a.k.a. Black Panther.